I should probably start by saying that I never imagined I'd find myself in this position. My wife, Melissa, and I had been together for nearly 8 years. We had what I thought was a solid relationship, or at least, that's what I kept telling myself. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I genuinely believed we were in it together. We had just bought a house, and I thought we were on the path to a beautiful future. But as I look back now, I see the cracks that were forming long before I ever acknowledged them. At first, it was subtle. Little things began to shift. Melissa started coming home later than usual from work, claiming she was busy with projects. She'd often be glued to her phone, texting or scrolling through social media, but whenever I'd try to peek, she'd quickly minimize the screen, flashing that innocent smile that says, "Nothing to worry about." I tried not to read too much into it. After all, with her job as a marketing manager, I figured she was just stressed. But deep down, a nagging feeling began to settle in my stomach. Then there was the day I took my car in for a routine checkup at the local mechanic. I had just dropped it off when I saw Melissa's car parked outside. It wasn't unusual for her to get her oil changed at the same place, but something felt off that day. I went inside to grab a coffee while waiting, and as I sat there, I noticed her chatting warmly with Rick, the mechanic. At first, I thought nothing of it, just a friendly interaction. But the longer I stayed, the more I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. When I got home later that day, I found her acting unusually cheerful, almost too cheerful. I thought maybe she'd had a great day at work, but that nagging feeling crept back in. It clawed at me, nagging me to dig a little deeper. I told myself I was being paranoid. I trusted her, right? But the doubt lingered like an unwelcome guest in the back of my mind. A few weeks passed with more of the same. Late nights, mysterious phone calls that were always just out of earshot, and that ever-increasing need to hide her phone. It was during one of those late nights when I finally had my proof. She had fallen asleep with her phone next to her. I couldn't help myself. I picked it up and checked her messages. My heart dropped as I scrolled through the texts filled with flirty banter and heart emojis, all aimed at Rick the mechanic. The betrayal hit me like a freight train, my stomach dropped and anger surged through my veins. I confronted her the next morning. I was trembling with rage and hurt as I demanded answers. Who the hell is Rick? I shouted. She jumped out of bed, wide-eyed and defensive, as if I caught her in the act, which, as it turns out, I did. Her initial reaction was to deny, to plead ignorance. "What are you talking about, James? You're being ridiculous." But I pressed on, holding her phone like it was a smoking gun. Eventually, the facade crumbled. She admitted to the affair, but she spun it. "It's not what you think, it's just physical. I didn't mean for it to happen," she claimed, as if that somehow made it better. I could feel every word slicing through me, each one sharper than the last. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to demand she leave. But instead I just stood there, numb and devastated. I was heartbroken, betrayed, and furious. The woman who I thought I knew so well had shattered every trust I had in her. I felt like I was losing my mind. My emotional journey was tumultuous, a whirlwind of disbelief and anger that left me reeling. One moment I was blindsided by rage, the next I felt a profound sadness settle in. How could she do this? How could someone who claimed to love me betray me so easily? I needed to take a step back and figure out what to do next. Should I fight for our marriage, or was it time to cut my losses? The decision weighed heavily on my mind. I felt lost in a fog of confusion and hurt, unsure of the path forward. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to just roll over and accept this betrayal without a fight. I wanted revenge, a way to make her feel the same pain she inflicted on me. As I thought about my next steps, something clicked in my mind. I needed to take action, and I needed to make sure that both she and Rick paid for what they had done. It was time to execute my plan. I spent that night tossing and turning, engulfed in a storm of emotions. I was furious, heartbroken, and disillusioned all at once. I couldn't stop replaying the moment of confrontation in my head. The look on Melissa's face, her feeble excuses, the way she had minimized my feelings, it all fueled the fire inside me. I wanted to hurt her the way she had hurt me. But how? Revenge requires careful planning, something I was not well versed in, but I knew one thing. I needed to hit her where it would hurt the most. The next morning, as I sipped my coffee, I began to formulate my plan. Rick, the mechanic, was at the center of this betrayal. He was the one who had crossed the line and taken advantage of my trust. I couldn't just let this slide. I had to make sure he faced consequences for what he had done. It was the only way I could reclaim some sense of control over the situation. The thought of their secret rendezvous filled me with rage, and the more I thought about it, the more determined I became. I decided to gather information about Rick. I knew he worked at a local auto shop, but I had no idea about his personal life. I took a drive over to the shop, pretending to be a customer looking for some repairs. When I arrived, I casually conversed with one of the employees, dropping subtle hints about the quality of Rick's work. I learned that he was a decent mechanic but had a reputation for being a bit of a player, charm included. It made my blood boil, knowing he had not only crossed a boundary with my wife, but had done so with other women as well. After a little digging, I found out that Rick had a side hustle, too. He did some work on cars after hours at a garage owned by a guy named Mike. His business was known for being a bit shady, and that was exactly what I needed to exploit. I devised a plan that would ensure he faced severe repercussions for his actions, and it all revolved around getting him fired. I began to devise a scheme to report Rick for some of the things I had learned. The auto shop had a strict policy about employee conduct, and Rick was known for bending the rules. I decided to collect evidence of his dodgy practices. I came up with a couple of excuses to return to the shop, each time gathering information about his work ethic and interactions with customers. The more I saw, the more I realized how careless he was. I wasn't going to let this pass without consequences. Meanwhile, I made sure to keep my interactions with Melissa as normal as possible. I didn't want to reveal my plan just yet. I feigned ignorance and played the role of the hurt but forgiving husband who was trying to work things out. It was a delicate act, but I was determined to keep her off guard. I didn't want her to know what was coming until it was too late. Over the next few days, I focused on documenting everything. I noted his late hours, his lack of attention to detail, and his inappropriate behaviors with female customers. I made sure to gather enough evidence to make it irrefutable. Every detail mattered. I could feel a sense of purpose growing within me, something I hadn't felt since I discovered the affair. This was my way of taking back control. As I slipped deeper into my plan, I also began to reach out to people in my network. I talked to friends who had connections in HR departments, people who understood how to deal with workplace misconduct. I wanted every possible angle covered. The more I plotted, the more empowered I felt. I knew that Rick would soon face the consequences of his actions, and I would revel in the moment. But there was still a part of me that wrestled with the morality of it all. Was this the right thing to do? I knew that seeking revenge could spiral out of control, but my heart was hardened by betrayal, and I had convinced myself that this was the only way to even the score. I wanted Melissa to feel the weight of her choices and lose the very thing she thought she could have, her affair partner. As I continued to execute my plan, I found myself feeling lighter, almost liberated. It was as if I had transformed into someone else, someone stronger who would let betrayal run his life. I was reclaiming my agency, and that was exhilarating. I realized I could use this experience to build something new for myself, even if it meant tearing down the old. The day finally came when I felt ready to make my move. Armed with evidence and a sense of purpose, I was about to take the next step. I marched into the auto shop with my heart pounding, ready to confront the man who had crossed the line. I knew this moment would change everything. The stakes were high, but I was ready to see it through. I held my breath as I walked inside, prepared to make the play that would ensure Melissa would never see Rick again. I stepped into the auto shop with a mix of nerves and adrenaline coursing through me. The scent of oil and metal filled the air, and the sounds of clanging tools and muffled conversations surrounded me. I spotted Rick across the room, laughing with a couple of customers who were picking up their cars. There he was, the man who had shattered my world. He looked so at ease, so casual, while I was boiling over. With rage and determination, I approached the counter and feigned a smile, trying to keep my composure. "Hey, I need to talk to Rick for a moment," I said to the receptionist, who glanced over her shoulder at him. She nodded, and I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. It was a busy day, but I didn't care. I was on a mission. Rick turned around, his smile fading when he saw me. "Hey man, what's up?" He approached, still trying to put on a friendly front. I could feel the tension in the air thickening, and I relished it. "Yeah, we need to talk," I replied, my voice steady. I could feel my heart racing as I led him to a quieter corner of the shop, away from prying eyes and ears. I could see curiosity flashing in his eyes, and I knew this was my moment. "Look, I know about you and Melissa," I said, cutting straight to the point. The words hung in the air like a thick fog, and I watched as Rick's expression shifted from confusion to panic. "I saw the texts. I know exactly what you two have been up to." Rick's face paled and he stammered, "Dude, it's not what you think. We're just friends, I swear." "Friends?" I scoffed, unable to contain my anger. "I've seen the messages, Rick. You think I'm going to believe that? You've been screwing my wife behind my back, and you have the audacity to act like it's nothing." He opened his mouth to argue, but I held my hand up, cutting him off. "Save it. This isn't a conversation about feelings or justifications. This is about consequences." I pulled out my phone and showed him the evidence I had collected. Texts that dripped with flirtation, plans for late-night rendezvous, and promises that were supposed to be shared between my wife and me. I could see his confidence start to crumble, and it felt good. "I'm going to make sure you lose your job," I told him, my voice low and menacing. "You think I'm just going to sit back and let this slide? No, Rick. I'm going to report you for everything. Your late nights, your unprofessional behavior. I'll make sure everyone knows you're just a sleazy mechanic who crosses lines." His eyes widened, and I could see him scrambling for words. "Come on, man, please don't do this. I didn't mean for it to get out of hand." "I don't care," I snapped. "You made your choices, now you'll face the consequences." I turned to leave, but not before delivering my final blow. "And don't think this is over. I'll be watching. If you step anywhere near my wife again, you'll be out of a job and facing other repercussions too." As I walked out of the auto shop, I felt an unexpected sense of relief wash over me. I had taken a significant step in my plan, and I could feel the weight of betrayal lifting, even if just a little. Rick hadn't seen it coming, and I relished the thought of him squirming in fear. I knew I had more work to do. This was just one part of my revenge. I still had to deal with Melissa. The confrontation with Rick was only the beginning, and I wanted to make sure she understood the depth of her actions. When I got home, I found Melissa sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up and greeted me with a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. It was the same forced facade I had come to recognize. I could tell she was trying to act normal, but there was an underlying tension in the air. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked, oblivious to the storm brewing inside of me. "Interesting," I replied, my tone flat. I could see her brow furrow as she sensed something was off. "What do you mean?" she pressed, her curiosity piqued. I took a deep breath, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "Let's just say I had a talk with Rick today. You know, the mechanic. He had quite a bit to say about your relationship." Her eyes widened, and for a brief moment I saw panic flicker across her face. "What do you mean? What did you say to him?" I leaned back against the wall, crossing my arms. "Oh, don't worry, he's going to lose his job. I made sure of that." Melissa's expression shifted from confusion to outright disbelief. "You did what? You can't do that. You don't even know what you're talking about." "Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about," I replied, my voice low and steady. "I have all the evidence I need. You think I'm just going to stand by and let this slide? You're mistaken." The reality of my words hit her like a slap in the face. I watched as the color drained from her face, replaced by a mixture of anger and fear. "You're being ridiculous. You don't understand what you're doing." "I understand perfectly," I retorted, my emotions boiling over. "I know that you chose to betray me with him. You chose to ruin our marriage. Don't you dare act like the victim here." She opened her mouth to argue, but I could see that my confrontation had caught her off guard. I pressed on, feeling emboldened by the power I had reclaimed. "I want you to think about what you've done, because this isn't over. You have to face the consequences of your actions, just like Rick is." I walked away, leaving her to stew in her thoughts. I felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that my plan was unfolding. I had taken control, and I was ready to watch the fallout from her decisions. I knew I was on a path of no return, but at that moment, it felt like the only choice I had left. I had lost what I thought was a loving marriage, but I was determined to find a way to reclaim my dignity and self-worth, even if it meant tearing down the life I had built with her. The aftermath of my confrontation with Rick was still fresh in my mind as I lay in bed that night, wrestling with my thoughts. I couldn't escape the sinking feeling of betrayal, but it was soon replaced by a sense of empowerment. I was taking control of my life, and for the first time since discovering Melissa's infidelity, I felt a spark of hope. However, I knew this was just the beginning. I still had to confront Melissa fully, and that was a conversation I dreaded. The next morning, I woke up determined. I had to sit down with her and discuss the future of our relationship. I didn't want to continue living in a state of emotional limbo, but I also didn't want to make any rash decisions. I wanted her to fully comprehend the weight of her actions and how they had shattered my trust. When I walked into the kitchen, I found her sipping her coffee, looking as if nothing had happened. She greeted me with a smile that felt forced, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. I felt a surge of anger at her nonchalance. How could she act like everything was fine after what she had done? "Melissa, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. Her smile faltered and she set her coffee down. "About what?" "About us," I replied, taking a seat across from her. I leaned in, my heart pounding. "About what happened between you and Rick." Her expression shifted, and I could see the gears turning in her mind as she searched for a way to shift the blame or make excuses. "James, can we not do this right now? I'm really stressed with work, and I thought we were going to work on things." "No, we need to address this now," I interrupted, cutting off her attempts to dodge the conversation. "You wanted to be with him. You made that choice, so we're going to talk about it." I watched as her defenses went up, her initial confidence fading. "I told you it was a mistake. I'm sorry, can't we just move on?" "That's the problem," I said, feeling my anger rise with each word. "You expect me to just forgive and forget, but that's not how this works. You have to understand the damage you've done." She opened her mouth to argue, but I pressed on, not letting her divert the conversation. "You destroyed our marriage with your actions. You didn't just cheat, you chose to betray the trust we built over the years." Tears welled up in her eyes as she struggled to find the right words. "I was confused, James. I didn't mean to hurt you, it just happened." "Confused?" I scoffed. "You think that's an excuse? You let it go on for months and now you're trying to play the victim. You have no idea how much this hurts. You don't get to turn this around on me." The silence hung in the air, heavy and tense. I could see the realization sinking in. She had thought she could charm her way out of this. But I wasn't having any of it. "Tell me, what were you thinking?" I pressed, my voice low and fierce. "What did you expect would happen? That I'd just accept it and carry on like nothing changed?" I don't know, I thought it was just some fun and I didn't think it would lead to this," she exclaimed, her voice breaking. "I thought I could handle it." "Handle it?" I echoed, my disbelief turning into frustration. "You thought you could just juggle two lives without consequences? That's incredibly naive and selfish." Melissa's tears flowed freely now, but I was unmoved. I had felt enough pain for both of us, and I wasn't about to let her manipulate my emotions. "I want you to understand how serious this is. You need to take responsibility for what you did. This isn't just some minor mistake. This is an affair. You've broken our vows, and I don't know if I can ever trust you again." The gravity of my words settled between us like a chasm. I had no idea how this conversation would end, but I was ready to lay it all on the line. I can't pretend everything is okay when it's not. If you want to salvage this marriage, you have to be willing to do the work, and that includes being honest about what you've done and why. She reached out, grabbing my hand, her grip shaky. "I want to work on it, I really do. I'll do anything you need me to do. Please, just give me a chance to prove I can change." "Change?" I repeated incredulously. "What does that even mean? Can you undo the past? Can you erase the hurt you've caused?" "I can try. I can go to counseling, we can go together. I don't want to lose you," she pleaded, eyes wide and desperate. I sighed, feeling the weight of her words. Part of me still cared about her, still wanted to believe that we could fix this. But I also knew that trust takes time to rebuild, and I wasn't sure I was ready to commit to that process yet. "I need time, Melissa. Time to think about whether I can even consider rebuilding this." Right now, all I feel is betrayal and hurt. And I can't just gloss over that, I said cautiously. The realization of what I was saying hung heavily between us. I was allowing her a glimmer of hope, but I knew it was conditional. I understand, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll give you the space you need. I just hope one day you can forgive me. I nodded slowly, feeling a mix of emotions swirling within me. It wasn't just about forgiving her. It was about finding a way to forgive myself for allowing this to happen. I needed to process everything that had transpired. As I took a step back from the conversation, I realized that I was at a crossroads. I could either choose to hold on to the pain and anger, or I could take a leap of faith and try to move forward. But it wouldn't be easy. I had to weigh my options carefully, and I knew that whatever decision I made would have lasting consequences. With that, I got up and left the room, leaving Melissa to her thoughts. I needed to think things through. I had taken my first steps toward revenge against Rick. But now it was time to evaluate my next move regarding Melissa. I could see that my journey was far from over. I had just begun to navigate the complexities of betrayal, trust, and what it meant to reclaim my life. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew I had to stay strong and true to myself. In the days following my confrontation with Melissa, I felt like I was walking through a fog. The house felt different, almost foreign. Every corner reminded me of what we once had, and every shadow seemed to whisper the pain of betrayal. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion, and a strange sense of empowerment. I had taken concrete steps toward my revenge against Rick, but I was still grappling with the implications of what it all meant for my marriage. Melissa was doing her best to play the part of the remorseful spouse. She offered apologies at every turn, tried to engage me in conversation, and even suggested couples counseling. I could see she was genuinely trying to show accountability, but I struggled to reconcile her actions with her newfound commitment to change. The trust between us was shattered, and I couldn't just sweep it under the rug. One night, as I sat on the couch staring blankly at the television, I heard Melissa approach. She sat down beside me, her presence a mix of anticipation and dread. "Can we talk?" she asked softly, her voice trembling slightly. I turned to face her, my heart racing. "About what?" "I just want to talk about us, about how we can move forward from this, from everything that's happened," she said, her eyes searching mine for any sign of hope. "Moving forward," I echoed, feeling a swell of frustration. "Do you really think that's possible after everything? You've betrayed me in a way I never thought possible, Melissa. I don't even know who you are anymore. I know I've made a terrible mistake. I'm not trying to make excuses, but I want to understand why I did it. I want to work through this together," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I love you and I don't want to lose you." I looked at her, searching for sincerity in her eyes. Part of me wanted to believe her, to hold on to the love we had shared for so long, but another part of me screamed to run, to protect myself from further hurt. "It's not that simple," I said, my voice low. "You think a few apologies and some therapy sessions can fix this? You've shattered my trust." "I'm willing to do whatever it takes," she insisted. "I'll go to counseling alone if it means you might come back to me. Just please don't give up on us." Her desperation tugged at my heart, but I couldn't shake off the images of her with Rick. The intimacy they shared, the laughter, the secrets, I couldn't unsee it. And what about Rick? What happens if you run into him again? What if you continue to work together? It's not like you can erase the past. She lowered her gaze, biting her lip. "I know it's complicated, but I swear I'll cut all ties with him. I'll focus on us. I'll do everything I can to prove I'm committed to making this work." I shook my head, torn between my love for her and the reality of the situation. "Every time I look at you now, I see him. It's going to take a long time for me to get over this. I don't even know if I want to try." Melissa's face fell, and I could see the tears pooling in her eyes. "Please, just give me a chance. I don't want to lose you. I know I've hurt you, but I want to make it right." The desperation in her voice made my heart ache, but I also knew that I needed to protect myself. I couldn't let her just walk back into my life without significant changes. "I need space to think. I can't make any rash decisions right now," I said, trying to keep my tone calm. "Space," she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you saying you want to separate?" I don't know, Melissa. I just need time to process everything. I can't pretend everything is okay when it's not, I replied, my heart heavy. She nodded slowly, wiping away tears. I understand. I'll give you the space you need. Just know that I'm here and I'm willing to fight for you. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling of sadness that enveloped me. I had never wanted to be in this position. I wanted us to work, to find joy in each other again, but the walls felt insurmountable. I was on the precipice of a major decision, and I needed clarity. The next few days passed in a blur. I spent hours contemplating my next steps. It was time to put my plan into action regarding Rick. I needed to ensure he faced the consequences of his actions, and I wanted to gather enough evidence to ensure that he wouldn't be working in the auto industry for a long time. I reached out to the HR department of the auto shop, posing as a concerned customer. I expressed my grievances about Rick's unprofessional behavior, citing specific instances where he had been reckless with customer cars and inappropriate with clients. I knew it was a slippery slope, but I felt justified. I was not only seeking revenge for myself, but also protecting others from his behavior. To my surprise, the HR representative was responsive and took my claims seriously. I provided them with all the details, confident that I had enough evidence to warrant an investigation. I could feel the adrenaline rush through me as I realized that I was about to have a direct hand in Rick's downfall. With every step I took, my resolve grew stronger. I wasn't just fighting for my dignity. I was also reclaiming control over my life. I could feel the fog lifting slightly, and I began to see a path forward, one where I didn't feel like a victim, but rather a man who was standing up for himself. But as I prepared to execute my plan against Rick, I couldn't help but reflect on what I truly wanted for myself. Was revenge going to heal my wounds, or would it only deepen them? Did I want to salvage my marriage, or was it time to let go? I had a decision to make, and it was looming over me like a dark cloud. I had to choose whether to keep fighting for a love that felt so tainted or to walk away and focus on rebuilding my own life. Both paths were fraught with uncertainty, but I knew that whatever I chose, it needed to be for my own healing. The confrontation with Rick was just a few days away, and I needed to be prepared for whatever fallout would ensue. I was about to take the final steps toward revenge, but I also had to face the reality of my marriage with Melissa. Could I forgive her? Could we rebuild? Or was it time to finally turn the page? I didn't have all the answers, but I was determined to find out where my journey would lead. The day of reckoning had finally arrived. I woke up early, my heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and dread. Today would mark the culmination of my revenge against Rick, but it was also a day of reckoning for my marriage with Melissa. I knew that whatever happened next would shape the future of my life, and I had to be ready for the fallout. I arrived at the auto shop just as it opened. The bell above the door jingled, announcing my arrival. I felt a rush of emotions as I stepped inside. This place had been the backdrop of my betrayal, the site where my world had crumbled. I spotted Rick right away, tinkering with a car, his back turned to me. He looked calm and collected, completely unaware of the storm brewing behind him. I walked toward him, my footsteps echoing in the stillness of the shop. As I approached, he turned around, his expression shifting from surprise to unease. "Hey man, what's up?" he said, trying to sound casual, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. "Rick," I said, my tone low and steady, "we need to talk. You're not going to like what I have to say." His demeanor shifted, and I could see the worry in his eyes. "Is this about what happened with Melissa?" I nodded, taking a deep breath. "Yeah, it is. I'm here to make sure you understand the consequences of your actions. You think you can just waltz into my life and take what's mine without any repercussions. It doesn't work that way." He squirmed slightly, his bravado fading. "Look, man, I didn't mean for it to happen like that. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I echoed, my voice rising slightly. "You think it was just a mistake? You crossed a line and you didn't care who you hurt in the process. I have evidence of your behavior, your late nights, your inappropriate comments, clients, and how you've conducted yourself while working here. I've reported you to HR and they're taking this seriously." Rick's face paled and I could see the panic rising in his eyes. You can't do that." "Oh, but I already have," I said, feeling a sense of satisfaction as I watched his confidence crumble. "You're about to lose your job, and I want you to understand exactly why." He took a step back, his hands raised in defense. "Dude, please don't do this. I'll lose everything." "I was just having fun. I didn't mean to hurt you." "Fun?" I said, incredulous. "You think this is fun? You've ruined a marriage and you think it's a joke. This isn't just about losing your job. It's about the choices you made and the pain you caused." "James, please," he pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. "I'll make it right. I'll talk to Melissa," and I cut him off, glaring at him. "No, this isn't about you making things right anymore. You've lost that chance. You'll never have her again, and I'll make sure you don't have a job either. Just—" Then the receptionist walked in, her eyes darting between us as she sensed the tension. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. "Not quite," I replied, keeping my eyes locked on Rick. "I'm just making sure Rick understands the impact of his actions." She looked confused but didn't say anything further. I knew the showdown was only moments away. I had set the wheels in motion, and now it was time for Rick to face the consequences of what he had done. "James, please," Rick said again, his voice shaking. "This isn't the way to handle it. You don't want to ruin my life over this." "You ruined your own life when you made the choice to betray me," I shot back. "I'm just here to finalize your fate." With that, I turned to leave, a sense of relief washing over me. I had done what I came to do. I had taken back my power, and I felt a sense of liberation in knowing that I had forced Rick to confront the consequences of his actions. As I drove home, I felt lighter. The weight of betrayal was still heavy, but I had reclaimed part of my life. I knew that the road ahead with Melissa would still be rocky, but I was prepared to face it. I was ready to confront her and discuss what our future would look like. When I arrived home, I found Melissa in the living room, her expression fraught with worry. She looked up as I walked in, her eyes searching my face for clues. "How did it go?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "I reported Rick, and he's going to face the consequences of his actions," I said, watching her reaction closely. Her eyes widened, and a mix of relief and guilt washed over her features. "You did what you had to do," she said hesitantly. "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself." "But this isn't just about that," I said, my voice firm. "This is about us. I need you to understand how serious this is. I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again, Melissa. You have to be willing to do the work if we're going to move forward." "I will, I promise. I'll go to therapy and I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild your trust," she said, tears welling in her eyes. I looked deep into her eyes, searching for the sincerity I needed to see. "You need to understand that this isn't going to be easy. I'm not just going to forgive and forget. It's going to take time." "I know," she replied, her voice trembling. "I understand. I'll do anything to make this right." As we sat together in the living room, I realized that the path ahead would be challenging. There would be tears, hard conversations, and moments of doubt, but I was willing to try. We had both hurt each other, but I believed that if we were both committed to healing, we could find a way to rebuild what had been lost. Looking back on the whirlwind of events that led me here, I understood that I could no longer be the victim in my own story. I had taken a stand, fought for my dignity, and come out stronger on the other side. I had learned that while betrayal can cut deep, it can also serve as a catalyst for growth and change. As I held Melissa's hands, I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps we could find our way back to each other, or perhaps I would choose to move on. The future was uncertain, but I was ready to embrace it, whatever it may hold.